and good to have you with us on this edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, we brought to you the horrific state of affairs, the forgotten COVID zone of India. Yesterday here on the Urban Debate, I told you about the Mumbai metropolitan region, especially the satellite towns, the neighborhood of Mumbai itself, not the Mumbai city, and how cases were spiking there. Today we continue, and we've got some special investigative reports also lined up for you to really show you the state of affairs. Now, let me tell you why we believe, and I believe, that this is an extremely important conversation to have. Why this needs to be brought to the notice of the authorities, and authorities need to move in quickly to resolve the problem of this region. It's the India's largest industrialized belt, the Mumbai metropolitan region. These 9 different district corporations that we have, one of India's largest industrialized belt. About 1.6 crore population in 3 districts in this zone. Then it houses manufacturing, it houses the IT hub, great amount of commercial offices settled in these satellite towns, houses several key industrial units. It's a preferred destination even for migrants, from several north and northeastern states. The ones that come in search of livelihood come to this zone. Provides workforce for Mumbai. People who work in Mumbai often live in these towns, more affordable. They can settle here, buy their own homes, and then travel to work to city of Mumbai. So they're essentially also running the city of Mumbai. 40% of the population actually travels to the city of Mumbai, commutes on a regular basis for work purposes. Now, let's begin with a Mirror Now investigation. We called up 4 of the big hospitals in the Kalyan Dombivli region. And our intention was to find out just how bad is the situation. Are there beds available? How many beds are available? And viewers, the most shocking part was at all 4 hospitals we were told there are no beds available. Listen in.
हेलो कैजुअलिटी शास्त्रीनगर हॉस्पिटल बोला। मैम कोविड पेशेंट के लिए बेड चाहिए था। नहीं, पेशेंट की कंडीशन कैसी है मैडम? क्रिटिकल है मैम, क्रिटिकल है। तो नहीं, अपने पास नहीं है। नहीं है मतलब बेड ऊपर खाली नहीं है। अपना तावड़ा रूम में आपने ट्राई किया क्या? नहीं, वहाँ पे कोई फोन नहीं उठा रहा है अभी। क्रीड़ा संकुल में आपको जिधर आईसीयू है उधर आईसीयू है अवेलेबल, तो वहाँ पे अगर बेड खाली हो जाएगा तो आपको मिल जाएगा। तो आपके यहाँ पे आईसीयू खाली नहीं है अभी? नहीं, हमारे यहाँ पे बेड खाली नहीं है फिलहाल, सब बड़े हुए हैं। मैम वेटिंग लिस्ट पे आप नाम लिखवा सकते हो हमारा? नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होता है। वेटिंग लिस्ट नहीं रहता है अपने पास। अच्छा, ठीक है। हेलो, हाँ बोला। एक कोविड पेशेंट के लिए बेड चाहिए था मैम। और बेड ना फुल है, बेड फुल है मैम। मैम आईसीयू या ऑक्सीजन बेड भी? आईसीयू तो फुल है। और ऑक्सीजन बेड मैम? नहीं, वही तो आईसीयू ही है, आईसीयू फुल है। तो कोई भी मतलब नॉर्मल बेड भी नहीं है जहाँ पे कोविड पेशेंट को एडमिट कर सकते हैं? नहीं, बेड खाली है। तो कब तक मैम, अगर हम नाम भी लिखाएं तो कब तक मिल पाएगा? नहीं, बता नहीं सकता। थोड़ा पेशेंट क्रिटिकल है मैडम, इसके लिए, और बाकी कोई हॉस्पिटल जवाब नहीं दे रहा है। नहीं मैम, अभी हम भी क्या कर सकते हैं, हमारा स्टाफ भी थोड़ा बीमार है और पेशेंट भी ठीक है, तो बिना डिस्चार्ज भी नहीं प्लान कर सकते। आपका स्टाफ कम है मतलब? नहीं, स्टाफ कम मतलब स्टाफ बीमार है थोड़ा। अच्छा, तो ज्यादा स्टाफ नहीं आ रहा है क्या? हाँ, आर हॉस्पिटल।
हाँ बोलो।
सर, एक कोविड पेशेंट के लिए बेड चाहिए था।
मैडम अभी तो पूरे बेड फुल है।
सारे के सारे आईसीयू वेंटिलेटर भी नहीं है?
नहीं मैडम, मेरे पास 56 की कैपेसिटी है, 88 पेशेंट है। आप सोच लो अभी हालत क्या है।
तो आप वेटिंग लिस्ट पे कहीं लिखवा सकते हैं सर नंबर?
आप मेरे को रिपोर्ट व्हाट्सएप करो, मैं ट्राई करूंगा, बट आज तो पॉसिबल नहीं लग रहा।
Well, Disha, in fact, has been tracking this story for us. Disha, these are the biggest of the hospitals in Kalyan Dombivli. Now, you've reported on what the authorities have been saying, how they are going to add to the capacity. But right now, it looks every single bed that will get added will perhaps already have several patients waiting because there are absolutely no beds available right now.
that is the exact situation on the ground level, Tanvi. In fact, Kalyan and Dombivli, both the twin cities, have been facing massive bed shortage, if we talk about, and there are a couple of reasons to it. Of course, when we spoke to these 4 hospitals, the reason for choosing these 4 hospitals is because these are dedicated COVID hospitals that the corporation has really assigned in the last 4 months. And the facility infrastructure is so limited here that either there are about 10 to 20 patients already waiting. Few of the hospitals have admitted patients beyond its capacity. We heard one of the hospitals saying that the capacity is only 56, but still they have admitted 88 patients, and there are more on the waiting list. So here, if we talk about be it the general beds, ICU beds, if we talk about oxygen beds, ventilators, it's a massive shortage here. If we talk about numbers, then particularly there are about 250 ICU beds. 95% is occupied is what the KDMC is claiming. If you talk about the oxygen beds, there are about 462 oxygen beds across these hospitals, fully occupied. If you talk about ventilators, only 94 ventilators for a population which is of 18 lakh. And here, even more concerning is the fact that the KDMC has only one government hospital which is equipped with an ICU facility. There is no other government hospital which is equipped with facilities that can treat COVID patients. So that is the biggest, concern. Secondly, because they do not have government hospitals, the KDMC is actually dependent only on these private hospitals. Amongst these, we spoke to 3 hospitals where there is massive shortage, no beds available at all. And here in these private hospitals, the infrastructure is so limited. The setup is very, small since the beginning. And that is why beyond the capacity, they cannot really, add more beds. So this is the only crisis here that we are talking about on the ground level, which we have witnessed. And you couple this with factors like people not really following the lockdown measures very seriously, because Kalyan Dombivli is an area which is completely under lockdown till 19th of July. But more people coming out, which essentially means the cases might even increase further. So these are several reasons on the ground level that we have been witnessing in the last 2 days, specifically in these cities.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, it's not just this area, it's several other of the localities and satellite towns on the outskirts of Mumbai who are facing a similar problem. Many of the patients now being referred to Mumbai hospitals or those in nearby areas, because these corporations and these districts never bother to build the additional health infrastructure that was needed in the first 2-3 months of the lockdown. Disha, thanks so much for joining us and bringing us this story. Let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. So Vishwas Pathak, spokesperson for the BJP, Mahesh Chavan, spokesperson for the NCP, Dr. Mangesh Patel, chairman for IMA Hospital Board of India, Maharashtra State, and member of the IMA National COVID Task Force, and Dr. Shashank Joshi, Dean, Indian College of Physicians, Lilavati Hospital, and member of the Maharashtra Task Force for COVID. Let me actually begin with Dr. Mangesh. Dr. Mangesh, why is it that was it because we were so focused with Mumbai that we completely forgot what's happening around Mumbai? Did we take it too lightly, or were we, trying to build infrastructure but not at the good enough speed?
100%. Whenever you go speak of any region, like you are speaking right now, Kalyan, Dombivli and the area around, that is the MMR region. Okay. Everywhere that regional civic body, which is supposed to be responsible for procuring every services over there, there has been 4 to 5 lockdowns till now. But unfortunately, these lockdowns were not implemented very strictly and sternly. And the result of which we are seeing today here, that there is a massive increase in the cases here. Secondly, the main intention of the lockdown is a preparedness, healthcare preparedness, which was not at all delivered in this area. Just now, while in the preamble of this session, you only have mentioned that here the civic bodies are mainly dependent on the private hospitals over there, and there is only one government hospital which is having ICU. To my knowledge, and where I reside in this same area, this ICU which is there in the Shastrinagar hospital, which was on your screen just now some time back, has been set just few days back. Now, what is happening? Everyone is after procuring beds over here. That we have given 800 beds, we have given 1200 beds, we have given this many beds with oxygen, this and that. Remember one thing, beds do not treat patients. That one thing we are forgetting here. It is a manpower. It is the human resources, doctors, the staff nurses, which are not there. Who is going to run these hospitals? Just by creating some 300 bed, 500 bed, 700 bed hospital, it is going to be of no use. Remember that. This is what is happening in this area. Now, as far as the public is concerned, I already mentioned that the lockdowns were not implemented properly at all. Very recently in the area of the Kalyan Dombivli, there were 2 successive lockdowns of 7 days duration each were extended. The last one is going up to 19th, that is day after tomorrow. But still, these lockdowns are on paper, they are not implemented very sternly. The aim and objective of every lockdown, it is written. The guidelines, how the lockdown should be conducted and taken care of, it is also written very clearly. Still, they are not very properly addressed. Healthcare preparedness and other things like ambulance services. Today in Kalyan Dombivli area, people are spending money like a hell on ambulance services. We have just given the numbers of the ambulances that you call on these numbers on the hospital. Why you are not making it public that from this distance to this distance, these many charges will be there. Today for the area distance of say 2 kilometers or 1 kilometer, people are paying in the tune of 5,000 to 10,000 rupees. And that's why people get angry. These services are being handled this way, and that is the way it is, that is the public outrage is there, and more cases are there. Thank you.
No, but I understand what you're saying, and of course a large part of it is also the responsibility of the people to follow the norms. But if they weren't following the norms, whose responsibility was it, Mr. Mahesh Chauhan, to ensure that that's done, that some amount of strict rules and regulations are followed by people, and irrespective of whether people are following the norms or not, everybody knew that the minute we start unlocking, the cases will spike. Yet we were not prepared.
First of all, I would like to thank you for carrying out this survey in MMR region and putting the facts in front of us. Definitely, as a government, we will be definitely taking a note of this, and we will try to provide all the facilities and whatever is the shortage out there of the beds, of the persons, whatever it is, we will try and look into it. Now, secondly, I would like to tell you at the same point is, I would like to give you some numbers before we go ahead. Of course, there should be some shortage because you have done the survey there. You know, you have been there on the ground, so you might be knowing what is the actual situation out there. But at the same time, let me give you out some numbers. See, if you look at MMR region, including Thane and Palghar districts, the total number of cases so far is 80,367, out of which 38,619 have been recovered and been discharged at a rate of 48.05% of the recovery rate. Okay, and 39,626 patients are taking the treatment. They are the active patients. So all these patients who are already recovered and who have already been discharged, and the patients who are taking the treatments have got the beds. They are getting the treatment. They have got the doctors, paramedical staff, whatever is needed. And the mortality rate, if you look at the mortality rate, it is 2.64, which is much lower than that of the Maharashtra and Mumbai. If you look at Mumbai, the mortality rate is 5.64% and Maharashtra is 3.94%. Now, looking at this, we cannot say that we have not at all given any attention to MMR region other than Mumbai. So these are the things, these are the facts. But at the same time, we know there might be some shortage of beds. As you were showing, you asked some hospitals and you couldn't find the beds what you asked for. But we feel sorry about it. We apologize to the people if they are having problems, having difficulties in getting beds in those hospitals. We will definitely look into the matter. We will definitely try. And it would not be fair to compare only Mumbai and MMR region. See, as a state government, we have to take care of entire Maharashtra. We have to look at whole Maharashtra. And if you look at whole Maharashtra, out of 284,281 cases,
So tell me, Mr. Chauhan, what's the strategy? Tell me, Mr. Chauhan, what is the strategy? When the cases begin to spike, does the government then focus on that region only then? Because when Mumbai was facing a big challenge, we were only focusing on Mumbai, on what the BMC is doing, on what the government is doing, the steps, the policies, testing, screening, all of that was happening. But it's only now that we are being told by all of the authorities in all these areas, whether it's Thane, Navi Mumbai, Kalyan, Dombivli, Vasai Virar, Bhiwandi, that we will now begin to set up centers. In fact, I believe Prime Minister is addressing United Nations. Let's listen into that. I request our panelists to please stay on with us.
Our Housing for All program will ensure that every Indian will have a safe and secure roof over her head by 2022, when India completes 75th year as an independent nation. By then, 40 million new homes would have been made under this program, more than the total number of households in many countries. Today, our Ayushman Bharat scheme is the world's largest health protection program, covering 500 million individuals. In the fight against COVID, our grassroots health system is helping India ensure one of the best recovery rates in the world. We are also on track to remove TB by 2025. Other developing countries can learn from the scale and success of India's development programs. And for the technologies and innovations we have deployed, it is this realization that underpins India's own development partnership with the Global South. Excellencies, while marching forward on the path of development, we are not forgetting our responsibility towards our planet. Over the past few years, we have reduced 38 million tons of carbon emissions annually. This was achieved by electrifying our villages, providing clean cooking fuel to 80 million poor households, and introduction of energy efficient measures. We have set a target to install 450 gigawatt of renewable energy and restore 26 million hectares of degraded land by 2030. We have an age-old tradition of living in harmony with nature. We launched one of the largest campaigns for cleanliness and discourage usage of single-use plastic. Internationally, our initiative to set up the International Solar Alliance was a practical manifestation of climate action. Similarly, the Coalition of Disaster Resilience Infrastructure brings together all relevant stakeholders for a comprehensive approach. We have always prided ourselves as the first responder in our region, a friend in need, be it earthquakes, cyclones, Ebola crises, or any other natural or man-made crisis. India has responded with speed and solidarity. In our joint fight against COVID, we have extended medical and other assistance to over 150 countries. We also helped create a SARC COVID emergency fund in our neighborhood. Excellencies, the COVID-19 pandemic has severely tested the resilience of all nations. In India, we have tried to make the fight against the pandemic a people's movement by combining the efforts of government and civil society. We have given the highest priority to reach benefits to poor households. We have announced a package of more than $300 billion. It will bring the economy back on track, build modern infrastructure, and put in place a technology-driven system. We have put forward a vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant and resilient India integrated with the global economy. Excellencies, India firmly believes that the path to achieve sustainable peace and prosperity is through multilateralism. As children of planet Earth, we must join hands to address our common challenges and achieve our common goals. However, multilateralism needs to represent the reality of the contemporary world. Only reform multilateralism with a reform United Nations as its center can meet the aspirations of humanity. Today, while celebrating 75th years of the United Nations, let us pledge to reform the global multilateral system to enhance its relevance, to improve its effectiveness, and to make it the basis of a new type of human-centric globalization. The United Nations was originally born for the furies of the Second World War. Today, the fury of pandemic provides the context for its rebirth and reform. Let us not lose this chance. Excellencies, India has been elected to the United Nations Security Council at this very important time. With our deep commitment to maintaining global harmony, to improving social economic equity, and to preserving nature's balance, India will play its role in full support of the UN agenda. Namaskar. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Well, that was Prime Minister Modi there speaking at the Economic and Social Council of United Nations, where, of course, the conversation and the theme was about, dealing with these COVID times and moving on with such a challenge that the world is facing. And Prime Minister Modi highlighting the various initiatives that his government has undertaken, not just right now during the times of COVID, but also earlier. But a special mention there and an emphasis on a self-reliant India, an Atmanirbhar Bharat, integrated with the global economy. So maintaining that balance there, also keeping in mind not to alienate the rest of the world, even as India looks inwards for its economic growth. That was the address Prime Minister made, and this is, of course, the first big address at United Nations ever since India got voted to the Permanent Council. Well, that being said, now that the Prime Minister's speech is over, let's go back to the conversation that we were having. And thank you for our panelists who've, so patiently stayed back with us. Mr. Vishwas Pathak, let me bring in you also on this, because this is the point that we also made yesterday. In various regions, whether it is Thane or Dombivli Kalyan or Vasai Virar or Bhiwandi, various of these corporations are run with by various political parties, and of course at the Maharashtra government level there are three parties which are in power. So obviously this is an instance where everybody seems to have failed to do their job, whether it's the civic body or the state government. In fact, let me first go across to Dr. Shashank Joshi. Dr. Joshi, to your mind, where did we fail? Is it simply a problem of implementation of the norms, or should we not have used the lockdown time to prepare some additional healthcare infrastructure here?
So, Tanvi, I have 3 points to make. I would agree with Dr. Mangesh very clearly The first thing where we failed is probably we restricted testing in MMR and we did not do, it was very poor contact tracing. That is the first thing. Second thing is we didn't do capacity building for our healthcare infrastructure, and most of the healthcare infrastructure there is in private care. So we need to appeal to the private care practitioners that you can't distinguish COVID, non-COVID, treat the emergency first in COVID or non-COVID and suspect COVID and then move them to COVID facilities. But we definitely need to do more infrastructure there. And the third thing, which Dr. Mangesh also pointed out, is basic services like ambulances, etc., must be available at an affordable rate. They cannot be, fleecing for that. That is very sad. And it pains me a lot. I think that is something which you have also highlighted. And unless and until you wake them up or shake them up, we should not do that. And that's the other thing which I want to highlight. The other thing in this region, particularly I would like to point out is that the enforcement of the lockdown has not been as strict as Mumbai. And had it been more strict, because Mumbai and MMR are actually integrated. We can't open Mumbai if MMR is going to be in this state. So because of that, I think there has to be a lot of bilateral cooperation between Mumbai healthcare infrastructure and that. And the last point which I want to make is there is a severe shortage of healthcare professionals. Dr. Mangesh also pointed it out, and I think Mr. Mahesh also pointed it out. There is a clear-cut shortage of health manpower. We need to get definitely a lot of medical and paramedical help to this region, because even if there are beds there is no manpower. And my good friend from IMA, Dr. Mangesh, also said exactly the same thing. This is absolutely the need of the hour. But please don't forget, testing, tracing, isolation is mandatory. Yeah.
Yes, I will come back to this point because I do want to ask you and Dr. Mangesh both on what's the solution for this problem of shortage of healthcare staff. Even in the hospitals that Disha called up, many of them said that what can we do? Even our own staff has fallen sick. We ourselves are short staffed and there are no beds available. Now, while I understand the point that both of our experts made about ambulances, in fact, Mirror Now has done exhaustive investigation even on that front on how this racket is being run and exorbitant prices are being charged. The Maharashtra government at that time had turned around and said that they're going to cap prices, bring in more ambulances. But where will the ambulance take you if there are no beds available? In just one area, when we made calls to 4 hospitals in Kalyan, Dombivli, we were told there are just absolutely no beds available. Mr. Vishwas Pathak, this is not fair. I mean, we are going to be perennially in a cat and mouse game, running around in circles, catching up with what the situation is. We were told that the lockdown was supposed to be the time for authorities to prepare. Turns out we didn't prepare, and now all the municipal commissioners are telling us that now they are going to do it. Mr. Vishwas Pathak, good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, unfortunately we have a tough line with him this evening, Mr. Vishwas Pathak. I'm going to try and get you back. But Mahesh Chavan, come in on this part, and because I also had to interrupt you the last time when Prime Minister Modi was talking. Where is the accountability? Can you at least admit today that yes, we did not work in other parts outside of Mumbai and Pune? We forgot about the rest of the neighborhood?
See, Tanvi, as I was telling you a while back ago, it is not 100% true. I accept there might be some shortcomings, there might be some faults, there might be some shortage of beds and other medical staff and all that, but it is not completely true. As I was telling you, if you compare the numbers with that of rest of Maharashtra, if MMR region, if you want to say, see, Maharashtra, the recovery rate is 55.63%. And this MMR region, as I said, it is 48.05%. So it is not much lower if you see. On the other side, if you look at the mortality rate, the MMR region is 2.64, whereas Maharashtra is 3.94 and Mumbai is 5.64. So it is not true that our entire focus was on Mumbai alone. As a state government, our focus is on entire Maharashtra, and these things which you are trying to point out at, of course, there might be some problems. Of course, we are getting those. As we said, during the lockdown, first initial stage of lockdown, I believe it was up to 30th of May. everything was carried out properly. It was implemented properly. Then, as you know, from 1st June onward or 3rd June onwards to be precise, the unlocking was done. And during the unlocking, we had to give some relaxations to the people. See, as a government, it is not only the lives. Lives are of course important. That is the first priority. But at the same time, after a certain period of lockdown, when we started unlocking, we had to give some relaxations, and that too as per the directives of the central government and ICMR. Okay, so this is the thing, and everyone knew that after the unlocking, the number of cases are going to increase. And at the same time, if you see before that,
yes,
the number of cases,
but we don't have the beds.
Tanvi, I'm coming to that.
But we don't have oxygen beds. We don't have ICU beds. We don't have ventilators. We don't have ambulances. You are right. Everybody knew the minute we unlock, cases will go up.
Tanvi, let me come to that. I do agree with you. As I said, I started my debate with this point that I thank you for carrying out this survey and putting the facts in front of us, and the government will definitely look into it. At the same time, I said that we do agree that there might be some shortage of beds and other things, which we'll try our best to provide. Now, if you, what you showed, the videos or pictures, what you showed, and you showed some recordings with some of conversation with some hospitals where you are not finding the beds. But now, how about this? Out of 80,367 total cases, 38,619 patients have been recovered. They got the treatment. They have been discharged. They got the beds. And now 39,626 patients are still taking the treatment. They have got the beds. They have got the medical facilities. So it is not 100% true that there are no beds at all. Of course, there might be some shortage. I agree with you that we could not develop the infrastructure, health infrastructure, the way it should have been. But now we are trying our best. It is not, see, I don't want to politicize the issue, but it was not only during our government. You know, we came back in power in only 6 months before, and out of that, only 3 months we got to rule, and after that, we are busy with COVID. So, you know, there are other things also.
No, I am not even comparing. I am not comparing, Mr. Chauhan, to what was happening before March 2020. Everybody knows the abysmal, pathetic state of healthcare infrastructure in our country. It doesn't matter whether it's your government now or any other government in this state or any other state. The situation was same, which is exactly why through last week of March, all of April, all of May, even in the first half of June, we were in a state of lockdown to help you set up some temporary structures, just like you did in the city of Mumbai. But what have we seen in these areas now? That there isn't any such temporary structures. In some of these zones, there aren't even enough dedicated hospitals. Private hospitals are slow to come on board. Testing labs aren't there. People are running around to even get themselves tested. There is delay in contact tracing. There is delay in follow-up that's happening on this testing. And this is the hard reality. Now, we can say that, okay, we didn't do enough here, we will start here. But by that logic, every time there is a new zone that opens up, we will then wake up to that challenge. What was the whole point of that lockdown? It wasn't just supposed to be for Mumbai. Mr. Vishwas Pathak, I hope we're able to hear you this time. You've heard what everybody else has said. Go ahead, please, make your point.
See, Tanvi, whatever figures have been given by my friend Mr. Chauhan, if that were true, then out of the 4 cases shown by your reporters, at least one would have been a correct situation. Situation is not like that. People and patients, those who want admission, they are not getting admission for 7 days. They have to travel from one hospital to another hospital. If they get admission, there are no beds available. If beds are there, there are no ventilators. So there is no any comprehensive policy out of this government. None of the ministers are going on street and take ground reality experience. Whereas leader of opposition, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, has been going all across the districts, talukas, and highlighting such situation, which you are also doing as a channel. And this government, like Mr. Sharad Pawar, the NCP, who is extra constitutional authority, recently said this entire government is working only for COVID for last 6 months, the moment they are in power. And you know the reality, what is happening. There is no medicine available like remdesivir. as against 6,000, one has to pay 30,000 for 30,000, and 5 such injections are to be taken, totally to 1,50,000 rupees. There is no ventilator available. There is no any anticipative action taken by this government. They are totally helpless, clueless. All they are doing is just putting lockdown, and lockdown is not the solution. And for such government, same Mr. Sharad Pawar is giving 10 out of 10 marks to Chief Minister of Maharashtra, who is simply sitting at his home. He doesn't know the ground realities. I think situation is very pathetic. This government has to come with proper long-term strategy. They cannot work in this confused state of mind. It is really taking tools.
Let me also actually, get a response from Mr. Chavan on that. Mr. Chavan, do you want to respond to what Vishwas Pathak is saying?
Of course, Tanvi, thank you for that. See, Tanvi, now this is not true that this lockdown has been imposed by the state government. Mr. Pathak should know that this lockdown has been imposed by the central government. Epidemic Act, as per the Epidemic Act, central government take control of everything. And as per their directives and as per their guidelines, this lockdown has been imposed here in Maharashtra. This is one thing. Secondly, he was talking about Mr. Devendra Fadnavis that NCP leaders or NCP ministers are not going on the field and they are not working there on the ground. And Mr. Fadnavis is going all over Maharashtra. For what? He is doing this just for the politicizing the issues. What are the results? What are the results he has given to the people of Maharashtra? As I said, this is not completely true that there are no beds available, there are no ambulances, there are no doctors. How come 2,84,281 total patients of Maharashtra who are suffering from COVID, out of which 1,58,140 patients got recovered at a rate of 55.63%, and 1,14,648 people are taking the treatment. I have given Mr. Pathak, I have given the number to you of the people who are getting the treatment and who are recovered and have been discharged.
No, but Mr. Chavan, you are playing a numbers game here, Mr. Chavan.
Can we please let me complete?
I know your party is very good at it. No, but you are throwing numbers from Maharashtra. A large percentage of those numbers were from Mumbai.
No, Tanvi. Yeah. Numbers for Mumbai, it is 97,950. And MMR, other than Mumbai, it is 80,367. My point is, Tanvi, if they are saying that there are no beds, there are no doctors, can Mr. Pathak tell me the number of how many people did not get the beds? I have given you the number of entire Maharashtra, MMR region and Mumbai. Can you give me the numbers? How many people don't get the beds? Mr. Pathak, can you give me the numbers? How many people are not getting ambulances?
Sure.
Mr. Chavan, it will be negligible. I am really sorry.
Mr. Chavan, if your numbers were correct,
for those who are not getting the bed, but please do not politicize. I know there is some problem. There might be some people who are not getting the bed. But look at these numbers also who have got the beds and
there are not some people. There are many people. There are many people right now who are struggling, running around from one part of the MMR region to the other, trying to figure where they can get the bed. Not only is this a problem that has plagued Mumbai for a while, now it's the entire region. 30 seconds to Vishwas Pathak to respond to that, and then I'm going to play out an example. I want to play out the story of Suraj Suryavanshi, a worker in Panvel. But before that, yes, Mr. Pathak, respond to that.
See, if Mr. Chavan was correct in his figures, then out of the 4 sample cases shown by your channel, at least one would have been wrong. I think these people should go and look at the ground reality. Without looking at the ground reality, just giving numbers will not help. Lockdown was announced by central government, but this very state government wanted lockdown to be handled by their own district magistrates and collectors. And thereafter they started working. Now, because things cannot be managed by them, they are again blaming back to government. If you are in power, you are supposed to take certain decisions. Come out of your house, come out of your Matoshri, come out of your silver robe. Look at the ground reality. People are not getting medicines. A lady is getting raped in hospital. There is no law and order situation.
Listen to
6,000
this
rupees
story.
remdesivir
Listen to this
injection.
story. Okay. Mr. Patak and Mr. Chavan, listen to me. Let me get you the story of Suraj Suryavanshi, a worker in Panvel, who spoke to us about his harrowing experience. And Mr. Chavan, you must listen to this, okay? Not even one person should be going through this. You can't say negligible, only a handful, very few, doesn't matter. Not even one person should be going through this kind of a painful experience. His mother fell ill. He went running around looking for a hospital bed. She was breathless. The family was desperate to get her hospitalized. 3 different hospitals in Panvel refused admission. And then they had to travel to Navi Mumbai to again hunt for some place and get a hospital bed for this elderly lady in that health state. Listen into his story.
मतलब उस दिन मैं गया एमजेम में गया पहला स्टार्टिंग 7 बजे तकलीफ होने लगा तो एमजेम में लेके गए एमजेम वाले ना बोले फिर मैंने सत्यम में भी देखा सत्यम में भी वो बोले हमारे पास अभी चालू नहीं हुआ 3 दिन लगेगा तो उसके बाद मैं प्राइवेट में भी देखा नहीं हुआ तो मैं माताड़ी हमारा हॉस्पिटल है उधर लेके गया उधर भी बेड के लिए ना बोला मुझे तो मैं एनएमसी हॉस्पिटल है उधर मुझे दिया रात को 1 बजे तक।
तो पनवेल के अंदर वाले कोई अस्पताल में आपको मिला या नहीं
मिला।
कितनी तकलीफ हुई आपको?
तभी तो 7 बजे से मैं लेके रात को 1 बजे तक घूम रहा था तभी तक तो मुझे नहीं मिला किधर भी।
अस्पताल वाले क्या बता रहे थे क्यों नहीं दे रहे हैं?
उनको आईसीयू मांगता है आईसीयू खाली नहीं है बोल रहे थे सब बाजू और प्राइवेट में जा रहा तो प्राइवेट वाले भी ना बोल रहे थे क्यों तो सांस लेने में तकलीफ हो रहा था इसलिए वो लोग बोल रहे थे कोविड है हम नहीं लेंगे।
Dr. Mangesh, if I can come to you first, I'm just trying to understand, could we not have figured out a local plan just like we have in Mumbai or Delhi of citizens knowing in times of need where they have to go for help rather than them in the middle of the night running around from one hospital to the other? Shouldn't we have figured that out for all of these satellite cities as well?
100%, Tanvi. There is something called as a dashboard. If you recall, around 1.5 to 2 months back, I had given this suggestion. Now, there are certain people at different level of governance. They are talking about the dashboard. This dashboard, they are using the analytical dashboard. What is the actual definition of a dashboard? How it should be implemented in this pandemic? It should be helpful to the people. Suppose tomorrow I get corona, I am a common man, and now I don't know where to go for admission. I should have that dashboard on my mobile or computer where at one click, I should understand where the beds are available vacant. And those hospitals, when I call, they can send ambulance to my place and collect me and get admitted to the. This is called as a dashboard, which is not there. Interactive dashboard it is called as. That is what is causing a problem here. I was slightly off the line in between. But I want to make, if you permit me, few points very important here. Number one, it was stated some time back there are 900 tests are done per day. This is not something to be celebrated. Remember that common people are not getting appointments for the test here. Number one. Point number two, when you go to the center in the Shastridhar Hospital, which is located in Dombivli, there is a huge number of crowd and long queue is there, which is absolutely against the social distancing. There is urgent need of more sectors for the testing. Number three, reports of the testings we are getting anytime between 48 hours to 5 to 6 days. Sometimes we are not even getting the reports. That is extremely bad. Another thing I want to ask you, when we speak of the numbers that the death rate here is a 2%, only the same as the national or some other places, why do we speak of this 2% death rate? I do not understand. If there are 100 people affected and 2 people have a sad demise, and there are 1 lakh people affected and 2,000 people have sad demise, the death rate remains the same. It is a question of not 2% of death rate. It is a question whether 100 people are getting affected or 1 lakh people are getting affected. So let us speak of the numbers of the patient, not the percentage of the death rate. Another thing, everyone is right now is speaking that we are dependent on the private doctors and hospitals. Let me tell you very categorically, all private doctors, IMA members, they are working in the COVID facilities, government-made COVID facilities. They are giving their services. All these COVID facilities are handled by IMA doctors. On the top of that, when it is coming from the local governance, that 80% of the private hospital beds or 90% they will be taken ever. I want to ask you 4 simple questions. If there are answers with the government of these 4 simple questions, I have got no objection to this 80%, 20% thing. Point number 1. Does this private small and mid-sector hospital have a separate triage area? Point number 2. Do these small private hospitals, they have got a separate air conditioning system which is necessary to manage the COVID patients? Point number 3. Do these private small hospitals, they have got a separate air ventilation system with negative pressure which is required for this COVID management? And number 4. Do they have adequate staff which is trained to manage this COVID facility? If not, then by putting this 80% of the beds in the private hospitals, we are creating issue for the public health itself. It is a very wrong step to take over the 80% beds in the private hospitals whenever we want to procure beds. We have to work out some mechanisms where we can give the quality and accountable healthcare during this pandemic to the people, not just to beat around the bush by putting such pressure on the private hospital. When the scenario is that they are providing the healthcare services. On the top of that, we are trying to crush them and push them against the wall.
Dr. Mangesh, that's also the easy way out. That's also the easy way out. Now, in times of an emergency, in times of a drastic situation, yes, private sector and private hospitals must play their part. But the authorities and the governments have to understand that we are in the long haul for this. It's not a 1 week, 1 month, 2 month kind of a problem. And for the next 6, 8 months, 1 year, you can't tell the private hospitals to keep 80% of their beds reserved just for COVID patients. You will have other patients lining up as well. You can't 100%. Put all of that on the back burner for beyond a couple of weeks, which is what the state governments and the authorities, local corporations are not realizing. And I'm seeing this conflict play out in every state now. But to the other point that you raised, and Dr. Shashank Joshi, what are the options to tackle the problem of shortage of medical staff and healthcare staff? What options does anybody have?
So, Tanvi, I agree with Dr. Mangesh, but 2-3 things I want to make very clear. First is, all these MMR regions must open up testing. You can't be draconian on testing. You have to upscale the testing and tracing facility. That's mandatory if you want to get past this region. Testing, tracing is mandatory. We will have to pull in volunteers and get more and more healthcare workers from across the state. I agree with him that IMA is doing its best, private sector is doing the best, public, private sector, all have blurred in this, and IMA has done a human job. I completely agree with him, but we will have to get a lot of healthcare professionals from outside. Wherever there are green zones, wherever there are orange zones, the administration should appeal and try to fill it up. Because I think, let me be very transparent, I think for 2 to 3 months, I think many of these corporations were in a slumber, and that is something very sad. And now they have woken up after the opening up happened, and therefore now at least wake up, do aggressive testing, aggressive tracing, and ramp up your healthcare infrastructure ASAP. I still feel that we can do very well. Though Mahesh is saying that we are at 2% mortality, we want it below 1%. Overall, our India has done well. Maharashtra, Mumbai, MMR will do well, but I think still a lot needs to be done. Let us plug in the bags, and at least let us be positive that wherever there are mistakes, admit them, plug them, and move forward. Because this is a war. And in war, there will be battles which will be lost and battles to be won. But this is a human war, and human beings are involved here. According to me, every single life which is lost pains me. And we need to go to a zero mortality area, which is a far-fetched thing. And we need to have, as doctor said, an interactive dashboard. Let's have transparency, let's have aggressive testing, and let's try to get as many volunteer healthcare workers in this region. I think if these 3 things are done, I think this region also will see the way Mumbai is getting better of it. Right now, one thing, small thing I want to make is probably this region is also going through its peak now. And that could also be the reason that suddenly the healthcare infrastructure is a little bit under pressure. Thank you, Tanvi.
Well, let's hope that. Let's hope so, Dr. Joshi, that this is where we are peaking for the Mumbai metropolitan region outside of the city of Mumbai, and things can only get better from here on. I'm completely out of time. I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us. But viewers, you heard it. Even now, we need to drastically step up on our testing, screening, isolating, contact tracing, implementation of the lockdown norms. We've got you reports repeatedly showing that even when there's a lockdown that's been announced, there is heavy traffic. Shops are all open, people are all roaming around, vendors on the streets, food stalls are open. That's not lockdown. That's just a, regular unlocked city, just like many other parts of India. And which is why we are struggling to keep a control on our cases. Now, I must say, I am not an advocate of a complete shutdown or a lockdown. In fact, I believe that's the easiest thing for somebody to do and for our governments to actually escape responsibility. They need to be better on implementation, on following of the rules and regulations. They need to prepare better healthcare infrastructure. That's how you fight COVID. You prepare yourselves better. Not that every time you see a spike, you just go into a lockdown mode. How long will that kind of a strategy work? COVID isn't going away. We need to start learning to live our lives around it, design our lives around it, and live with it. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Well, let's move on and get to the other big stories here, the big talking points that we saw through the day. And of course, Congress versus Congress, that's being playing out now, turned even more dramatic on Friday evening. The Rajasthan political crisis reached the courts, but before I tell you about what happened in the courtroom, let me tell you the high drama that unfolded just a few hours ago outside the Manesar resort, where some of these MLAs have actually been staying and hiding. Now, Special Operations Group landed at that place. The Rajasthan police landed at that place to take statements of these rebel Congress MLAs. This is in the light of the entire drama that's happened about the leaked audio clips and Congress making some very serious charges against the rebels and against Sachin Pilot's camp. The Special Operations Group was initially not allowed to enter inside this resort by the Haryana police. They said they want to verify who they are, why they are here. It was a massive drama that actually unfolded. Our reporter, Wajiullah, was present there at that moment. Here is a report that he got for us. Listen in. Okay, that is actually the entire sequence that you're looking at. This is what happened. Look at those visuals. The drama that unfolded around 6 to 7:30 p.m. Rajasthan police arriving, Haryana police not letting them go in, some back and forth taking place, all because they said they wanted to record the statements of the rebel MLAs. I'm going to get you that report in just a bit, but let me also very quickly take you through what happened in the courtroom. The Congress versus Congress drama is also playing out there. The Gehlot versus Pilot drama is now also playing out in the Rajasthan High Court. And what's interesting is the people representing the two sides. It's Abhishek Manu Singhvi versus Hari Salve. So it couldn't get more interesting. Meenakshi Banja is actually joining me with a lowdown on what transpired in the High Court today. Meenakshi?
Well, yes, absolutely, Tanvi. It is number one in Rajasthan versus number two in Rajasthan, who is now the deputy former Chief Minister of Rajasthan. And for the first time, we saw his demands really come out in the public domain. Because remember, thus far, what was happening is we saw a reported attempt in the media saying that he's not joining the BJP. But those are just words, and actions, we know, speak louder than words. And in the Rajasthan High Court, it was Mr. Hari Salve who argued for Sachin Pilot and the 18 MLAs, including Mr. Mukul Rohtgi, the former Attorney General of the Modi government. And they clearly said this, that there is absolutely no element of defection that is made out, because Sachin Pilot is merely demanding a change of chief minister. So it was the first time a stated demand of Sachin Pilot has come out in the public domain. that he wants the Chief Minister of Rajasthan to go and be changed because he said that there are disagreements over the dictatorial style of functioning of incumbent Chief Minister Rajasthan. He went on to state that by issuing this whip, where the speaker is seeking their responses, they're merely looking to throttle free speech and also stifle internal differences. He went on to also state that the speaker's powers, as envisaged under 10th schedule, is something that does not apply to him because every action has happened outside the assembly, outside the house, and therefore the 10th schedule powers are not made out. Of course, in the day we also saw in the second half, Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi countered this for the Rajasthan Assembly Speaker, saying that this petition in itself is premature. If at all there are certain contentions Pilot and the rest have, they can do so before the Speaker. So clearly, all is not well in Rajasthan, much less, with all these reports coming in about Sachin Pilot wanting to be in Congress. He says that there is no element of defection, but his actions clearly, and we have seen the ramifications play out in the past few days, where he's lost his job even as the now former Deputy Chief Minister Rajasthan and also the former PCC chief. So clearly, it's all set to escalate with the court postponing it, deferring it to Monday now. And in the meantime, till Tuesday 5:30 in the evening, the court has also asked for the Speaker to not take any action on the disqualification aspect. Back to you.
So for now, the Speaker cannot take any action until the court hears the case again and takes a call. The Speaker has been told to not act against the rebel MLAs. Meenakshi Banja, thanks so much for getting us the details of what happened in the Rajasthan High Court. But of course, Ashok Gehlot and the Rajasthan police and the Congress party are not now leaving any stone unturned. So it's not just the court drama. Otherwise, also they are going after those who were targeting them. So in fact, after the audio tapes, alleged audio tapes of the rebel Congress leaders were leaked, and Congress then held a news briefing about it, they even went ahead and filed an FIR against Union Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat and two rebel Congress MLAs. Now, Congress has accused these rebels of plotting with the BJP to destabilize Ashok Gehlot government. Gajendra Shekhawat, of course, said that the voice in the audio clip is not even his. He has nothing to do with any kind of conspiracy against the Gehlot government.
केंद्र सरकार के केंद्रीय कैबिनेट मंत्री श्री गजेंद्र शेखावत के खिलाफ स्पेशल ऑपरेशन ग्रुप्स एसओजी द्वारा एफआईआर दर्ज की जाए, पूरी जांच हो और अगर पद का दुरुपयोग कर जांच प्रभावित करने का अंदेशा हो, जैसा प्रथम दृष्टि से प्रतीत होता है, तो वारंट लेकर श्री गजेंद्र शेखावत की फौरन गिरफ्तारी की जाए.
And also, as this battle really plays out within the Congress party also suspended two more MLAs today who were the Sachin Pilot backers. Congress MLA Bhavar Lal Sharma and Vishwendra Singh have also suspended from their primary membership of the Congress party. They issued show cause notices to them, demanding an explanation about their conduct in the conspiracy, of the so-called conspiracy, as they say, to topple the Congress government in Rajasthan.
इन सारे हालात के अंदर भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस ने ये निर्णय भी लिया है कि श्री भंवरलाल शर्मा कांग्रेस विधायक को इन टेप्स की सच्चाई की वेरिफिकेशन होने तक पार्टी की प्राथमिक सदस्यता से निलंबित कर दिया गया है. श्री विश्वेंद्र सिंह, जिनके बारे में कुछ और सूचना शायद आएगी, उन्हें भी कांग्रेस पार्टी की प्राथमिक सदस्यता से निलंबित कर दिया गया है और दोनों को शो कॉज नोटिस दिया गया है कि कांग्रेस सरकार गिराने के इस षड्यंत्र के अंदर शामिल होने के बारे वो अपना स्पष्टीकरण दें.
Well, continuing with our continuous coverage of the Assam floods and the state of affairs there now, we're getting a detailed report. Of course, the casualty count has gone up further and thousands continue to now still look for safer locations, on the highlands and for shelter homes. Remember, viewers, almost 27 to 28 districts have been badly hit by the floods in the state of Assam. The river Brahmaputra continues to flow above the danger mark level. Now, I want to bring to you a special report that we've got for us, and this is the report from let's talk about Kaziranga first. In the Kaziranga National Park, it's one of the worst hit. It was bad last year, and for second straight year, this sanctuary has actually been badly hit. Now, forest officials have been working round the clock. They even managed to rescue a tigress that had strayed out of the park. The tigress is amongst 117 animals who so far have been rescued in and around the Kaziranga National Park area. On the other hand, a rhino was also spotted wading through the flood water. As many as 76 animals, unfortunately, have died in flood-related incidents in Kaziranga National Park. 90% now, almost 90% of this park's area has been inundated with river water. Here's a special report that Arindam got for us.
There seems to be no end to the miseries of the flood-affected people in Assam. We are right now in Morigaon district of Assam, which is one of the worst affected districts by this river flood. And these are the people who have been displaced when flash floods.
Okay, in fact, Arindam is joining me live right now, so I want to go across to him first. Arindam, what is the state of affairs today?
Well, the flood situation in Assam remains unchanged, though there is a great improvement in the weather condition, but that is not helping much in improving the overall flood scenario in Assam, because as of now also, according to the latest bulletin issued by Assam State Disaster Management Authority, 28 districts of the state out of 33 total districts are reeling under flood waters, and more than 36 lakh people are displaced, and more than 51,000 people are taking shelter in various relief camps. The death toll has mounted, which is right now 76. 5 people lost their lives in last 24 hours due to floods.
Anand, we'll have to take a couple of his ground reports from yesterday, otherwise we won't be able to sustain. Arindam, can you hear me? Go on, please.
Can you please repeat the question?
No, go on. Finish your point. We can hear you.
Well, yes, I have said that there is no improvement in the overall flood scenario in Assam. There is a lot of improvement in the weather condition. There is not much of rainfall activity across Assam and the entire northeast, but that is not helping much in improving the flood scenario. As of now, 28 out of the 33 districts of Assam are reeling under floodwaters, and 36 lakh people remain displaced, of which around 52,000 people are taking shelter in various relief camps. And 5 more people have lost their lives in the last 24 hours due to floods, and this has taken the death toll by floods, by this flood in Assam to 76. So there seems to be no improvement in the overall flood scenario in Assam, though there is an improvement in the weather condition. And the river Brahmaputra and its tributaries continues to flow above danger level at various areas, inundating fresh areas every day. The NDRF, SDRF, and various other rescue teams are conducting rescue and relief operations right now. And last 24 hours, over 3,000 people have been rescued from across Assam. The scenario is not much different in the various national parks and the wildlife sanctuaries in Assam. The Kaziranga National Park and the Tiger Reserve, which was inundated 95% by floodwaters, is just witnessing a little bit of improvement in the flood condition, but still now around 80% of the park is underwater. Today, there was a dramatic visual which we have accessed from park authorities about a tigress which was rescued by the park authorities 2 days back, which was marooned by floodwaters and was taking shelter in a human settlement, was rescued after 24 hours of wait and watch operation, as she was tranquilized and then was undergoing treatment for the last 2 days. And today she was released in the wilderness, and they will be keeping a close watch on this tigress. So right now, the overall flood scenario in Assam remains unchanged, though there is an improvement in the weather condition, but the overall flood scenario in Assam remains unchanged.
All right, Arindam, thanks so much for joining us with the updates of what happened, what's the current status. But since you've been traveling at various locations, I want to bring across a report that you got from Moregaon for us, on state of affairs there, how people are being rescued, moved to shelter homes. There's a special report.
There seems to be no end to the miseries of the flood-affected people in Assam. We are right now in Moregaon district of Assam, which is one of the worst affected districts by this wave of flood. And these are the people who have been displaced when flash floods created havoc in their villages. They fled their homes. They could not take any of their belongings. Just with some bare belongings, they fled with their lives and are right now forced to take shelter on this road. This camp has been made by themselves, and right now they are taking shelter in this temporary camp that has been set up. As you can see, the condition of the people who are affected by flood, this is how they are right now forced to coexist along with their cattle in these temporary camps. Apart from these camps which the people have set up themselves, there are over 40,000 people taking shelter in various relief camps set up by respective district administration. The flood situation in Assam remains critical, with 26 out of the total 33 districts of the state right now reeling under flood waters. Over 36,000 people have been displaced when flash floods created havoc in their villages.
Let's move on to the other big story that we've got for you here, and this is also a Times Network investigation, viewers. From Mumbai to the metropolitan region, Mumbai metropolitan region to Delhi, we're getting you investigation reports on just how the COVID situation is being handled. Now, as you know, in the national capital, the government has decided to set up plasma banks. This is a place where people can go and donate their plasma that can then be used for treatment of other COVID patients. Now, plasma can be used in specific cases for treatment of COVID patients, and this donation can only be made by those who've actually recovered from COVID themselves. Now, as this process takes place, obviously there is a lot of demand. Almost everybody wants to use this option and see if they can save their loved ones. And unfortunately, there isn't enough donation yet. People are still recovering and still thinking and contemplating with the idea of donating plasma. But unfortunately, there are these vultures of COVID who think they can make profit even in such times by scamming people. And so here is a story where we expose to you how these agents are running a racket in the national capital, and they are charging from 70 to 80,000 rupees. And that's the minimum. Their ask runs into lakhs depending on how desperate you are and how much of this plasma you really need. Not just this, the mafia nexus actually seems to have no fear of law. They're actually functioning like a regular business. They're saying, we will provide you door-to-door delivery of the plasma. I will play out two specific conversations that we've had, that our reporter has had with these agents who are trying to, rip people off right now. The first one, Kangana Sachdeva pretends to be relative of a patient who has and the patient is in one of the Delhi's top hospitals, and she is speaking to this person to see how she can go about getting some plasma. Listen in.
तो आप बताइए, 1 घंटा हो गया अभी तो। मैम, मैंने ए पॉजिटिव के लिए 3-4 अपने ग्रुप जो हमारे बने हुए हैं, मैंने सब में रिक्वायरमेंट डाल दी है। अभी तक कोई भी रिस्पांस नहीं आया है। अगर बी पॉजिटिव चलता है तो मुझे बताइए। आप में है ना? हाँ जी। हॉस्पिटल में आपका? हॉस्पिटल कितना है? हाँ जी। आप डॉक्टर से ये पता कर लीजिए, अगर हम आपको बी पॉजिटिव दे देते तो एक्सचेंज कर लेंगे या नहीं करेंगे वो? मतलब मैं उनको बोल देती हूँ कि डॉक्टर से पूछ लूँ एक बार कि डोनर में पॉजिटिव का ले आऊंगी, हाँ।
और मुझे ए पॉजिटिव का प्लाज्मा मिल जाएगा।
हाँ, आप ना ब्लड बैंक में जाकर सिर्फ और सिर्फ बात कर लेना, उनसे ये बोलना कि हमारे पास जो डोनर मिल रहे हैं वो बी पॉजिटिव के मिल रहे हैं। तो अगर आप एक्सचेंज कर सकते तो आप उनसे बात कर लीजिए।
आपको लगता है वो एक्सचेंज करेंगे?
करते हैं हॉस्पिटल वाले।
तो मतलब आपको प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है ना? अगर जैसे कि कोई पेशेंट गुड़गांव का भी है तो आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं होगी ना? एनसीआर या
हमें कोई प्रॉब्लम
नहीं। और अगर दिल्ली के बाहर किसी को डोनर चाहिए होता है वो भी मिल जाएगा?
दिल्ली के बाहर कहाँ?
नहीं, मतलब मैं पूछ रही हूँ कि अगर दिल्ली के बाहर किसी को डोनर चाहिए होता है तो वो मिल सकता है?
डिपेंड होता है। अब जैसे अभी हम 3 तारीख को अभी हम मोहाली गए थे।
हाँ जी।
मोहाली में ये हुआ था कि अमाउंट भी था और दूसरा जो आने जाने का फेयर था वो भी, मतलब गाड़ी का खर्चा वो सब उन्होंने पेशेंट के अटेंडेंट ने खर्च किया था सारा वो।
ओके। और कितना, मतलब मुझे कितना देना होगा?
ये सब बाद में होगा जब देखेंगे पहले कि क्या रिक्वायरमेंट आती है।
फिर भी सर थोड़ा एस्टिमेट, बिकॉज अगर मुझे रेडी भी करना है तो मुझे बात करनी पड़ेगी हस्बैंड से।
70-80 के करेंगे।
70-80,000 सर, उससे थोड़ा कम नहीं हो सकता?
मैं पूरी कोशिश करूंगा, देखता हूँ कहाँ तक पता है, मेरे डोनर तो मिल जाए कोई।
Here's the second conversation, and this is equally shocking, viewers. Another conversation that Kangana actually had with one of these agents. She pretended to be relative of a patient seeking the plasma, and this one is more brazen. Here the person is easily saying, oh, we will come and deliver it to your doorstep. Just ensure you give us cash.
आप मेरे को बताओ फिर मैं आपको कहाँ मिलूँ कल?
कल मुझे मॉर्निंग में एक बार 9 बजे कॉल कर लेना मैम।
फिर भी थोड़ा आइडिया दे दो।
के बाहर ही मिलना।
किसके?
के बाहर।
हॉस्पिटल के बाहर।
हाँ, आपको वहीं भी चाहिए ना?
हॉस्पिटल साकेत में ही चाहिए।
हाँ, के बाहर मिल लेना आप।
और एक बात बताओ, पेमेंट का मुझे थोड़ा आइडिया दो, मेरे को कल सुबह कैसे अरेंज करूँगी मैं?
मैम 70 लगेंगे आपको।
70 लगेंगे? सर आपने बोला था आप थोड़ा बात करोगे।
मैम मैंने बात करी है, जिस बंदे से करी है, उसके बाद ऑलरेडी कोई और आया हुआ तो मैंने बोलते होल्ड कर ले, अगर वहाँ पे नहीं होता तो जहाँ तुम्हें जाना है वहाँ चले जाना।
हाँ जी। ये कैश पेमेंट लेते हैं कि चेक पे देना पड़ेगा?
नहीं, कैश लेंगे और साइड में लेंगे, सबके सामने देना ही मतलब आप ही फंस जाओगे।
अच्छा नहीं, सबके सामने तो नहीं।
So if you don't have this kind of a money and if you want to go through the proper route, you have to go to the bank. But unfortunately, some of the patients who visited a plasma bank are saying that they are being told that the rule is, that the strategy is that you have to find a plasma donor who donates her, and then you will be given some plasma. Now, of course, that becomes an extremely tricky situation right now. If somebody needs plasma, they first have to search for a donor themselves, which is why perhaps this kind of a market is mushrooming over there. Now, one of the parents' relative narrated his ordeal. He questioned the entire process, obviously asking why do such rules exist. Listen it.
फादर कई दिन से हॉस्पिटल में भर्ती है, उनके लिए प्लाज्मा की रिक्वायरमेंट थी, इसलिए हम गए थे 3 दिन पहले। वहाँ उन्होंने मना कर दिया क्योंकि रिप्लेसमेंट डोनर नहीं था। तो उसके बाद अगले दिन फिर हम डॉक्यूमेंट्स के साथ गए थे तो भी उन्होंने मना कर दिया। हम जैसे लोग मुश्किल में हैं, रिकवर्ड पेशेंट के लिए भटकना पड़ रहा है। अगर हमें डोनर लेके ही जाना है तो फिर प्लाज्मा बैंक क्यों है?
In fact, we also spoke to one of the doctors at the plasma bank to get an insight into why this rule has been created, why this process has been put in place, if it's going to make it so problematic for the patients and their relatives. Here's the explanation.
A lot of people are criticizing this move, asking because if the one person has to eventually arrange the plasma themselves only, then what is the point of having a blood bank?
No, because some people feel it inconvenient, so I cannot generate a process that manufactures plasma, unfortunately.
Okay. On an average, how many people donate?
Abhi tak to it's like 15 to 20.
15 to 20.
Yeah.
These are the donors per day, right?
Donors are around 10. That's all. Voluntary donors.
Voluntary donors are around 10 per day. So then how is the number 15 to 20?
These are the replacement donors.
Okay, the replacement donors.
Yeah.
And sir, what about the fact of how many people are able to get the plasma per day? I mean,
15 to 20, the people who are replacement donors.
okay. So per day 15 to 20 plasmas you can give to patients if they get a replacement donor.
This is what the number is being given right now, not our capacity.
Okay.
This is how many are coming right now.
Okay. Sir, also one more thing, there is we got to know that the plasma bank is only for people who are in NCT, not for NCR. For example, if someone is in Gurgaon, Medanta or Faridabad.
Right.
So they will not be able to get the plasma from the bank?
No. So because this is a Delhi government enterprise.
Okay.
If patients are from outside are admitted in Delhi government hospitals, of course they are getting.
Mm-hmm. But not any hospital in Gurgaon or Faridabad, the patient won't be able to get the plasma, even if the patient brings up a replacement.
So this is Delhi Plasma Bank, no ma'am, not a national plasma bank.
We also spoke with Dr. Zareen Bharucha, an eminent hematologist on our explosive investigation to really find out what can be the solution. Of course, one part is that the authorities need to crack down on these agents who are roaming around running this kind of a racket, ripping people off. But the other aspect is how do we make it, a simpler process so that it has no space for this kind of a dirty game. Listen into what the doctor had to tell us.
Our system should be robust to prevent the touts cashing in on the opportunity. Therefore, there is a great need for developing a registry of plasma donors. When the onus is passed on to the patient's relatives to arrange for plasma donors, the relatives may go to any length to get the plasma from a donor to save their loved ones. If the registry can provide information on plasma donors and direct them to the blood center for preparing convalescent plasma, the treating doctors can obtain it directly from the blood center.